Hi guys, this is lesson 11. I'm on page 61. So the objective of this lesson is we're going to analyze number patterns created from mixed operations. So that means that, we'll be seeing rules with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay, so again, I'm on page 61, which is where you should be as well. Okay, so this one, number one says complete the tables for the given rules. This line is L and its rule is to double X. So when you hear double, that just means obviously times 2. So 0 times 2 is just gonna get us to 0. You guys could probably pause the video and just do this on your own. 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 2 is 6, and then plot those points. So really, these, I think these first parts are probably getting easier for you guys. It's more now about analyzing the lines and comparing them with each other. That's really, what this lesson's all about. All right, plot the points. 2, 4, 6. All right, and then again, this is line L. Make sure that you get a straight edge to draw the line through it and then mark it as L. Line L. Now we're gonna make line M. The rule is double X and then add 1. So these rules are very similar. This is double X, this is double X, but you just add 1 to it. So I'm gonna use what I'm given here. They've already doubled X. This one is just adding 1. So for example, this first one, 0, 0. They doubled X, and if I add 1, it's just gonna be 1 more than here. So it'll be 0, 1. Here, this was just doubling X, then you add another 1. So that gets you to 3. Double X plus 1, 5. Double X plus 1, 7. So I just used what I knew up here. You could have also thought, all right, 0 times 2 plus 1 is 1. 1 times 2 plus 1 is 3, and so on. And then you're going to plot these points as well. Okay, that's line M. All right, compare and contrast these lines. So the first thing I notice is that they're parallel. I'm also noticing that with the Y coordinates, for line M, each Y coordinate is just 1 more than in line L. So for example, 0, 0, 0, 1, that's 1 more. 1, 2, 1, 3. The Y coordinate is 1 more. All right, it says, based on the patterns you see, predict what the line for the rule double X subtract 1 would look like. Draw the line on the plane above. All right, so this is basically this rule, but the opposite. So here, line M was 1 above line L. If we're doubling X and then subtracting 1, I think that this will be, it'll be basically the same line, but now 1 below L, because you are doubling and then subtracting. So you don't need to use a straight edge for this one because it's just a prediction, so it doesn't really need to be, it doesn't need to be perfect, but it would look something like this. And then what line, or line, double X. Oh, they haven't given us what the letter of the line would be, that's okay. All right, that's C. Let's look at number 2. Circle the points that the line for the rule multiply x by 1/3 and then add 1 would contain. Okay, so basically we're doing x times 1/3 plus 1. That's the rule. So we're going to see which of these follows that rule. So I'm actually going to look at the x and then see what we get for y. So if I plug in, this is the x coordinate. If I plug in 0 right here for x, I think, all right, 0 times 1/3 is 0, plus 1 would get me 1. So that doesn't work. I didn't get to 1/3. So this one wouldn't fall into that category. Here, I'm going to plug in the 2 right here for x. So I end up with 2 times 1/3 plus 1. All right, I want you to do that on your own and see if you get 1 2/3. That's what you should get if this rule does work. So please pause the video and solve that. So you should have found that yes, it does when you multiply these two and then add 1, it does get you to 1 2/3. Now I want you to do that also for this one and this one. So remember, you're taking x, you're plugging it into here, and then your answer should be the y value. So do that for both of these. Pause the video. All right, you should have gotten 1 1/2, 1 1/2 as following this rule. This one, 2 1/4, 2 1/4. This one does not follow the rule. All right, explain how you know. So basically what we did is that we multiplied the x value by 1/3 and then added 1. So what I wrote here is that I multiplied the x value by 1/3, then added 1. If the y value was that answer that I had just gotten, then it followed the rule. It says give 2 other points that would fall on this line. So basically anything that you can plug x in and end up getting the same y value to follow this rule, that would work. So I'm just gonna give you 2 examples. You can check them on your own if you want, or you can come up with 2 other examples if you want. So 4 and 2 1/3, 6 and 3 also follow this rule. All right, moving on to page 62. All right, so sort of similar to the first page, they're gonna give us some rules. We find the points and then compare the 2 lines that we've drawn. So in number 3, it says complete the tables for the given rules. The first one is line L, and what we're gonna do is have x. So you might look at have x and say, what does that mean? That's basically just doing x divided by 2. So basically what we're doing is x divided by 2 equals y. Okay, so if we did 0 divided by 2, we're just going to get 0. 1 divided by 2, that's the same as 1 divided by 2, that gets you 1/2. 2 divided by 2 gets us to 1. And then 3 divided by 2 is going to get us 1.5. All right, after you've gotten these coordinates, we can plot them here on the line, or on the coordinate plane, I mean. Take your straight edge, draw the line. All right, this is line L. Now we're going to move to line M. We're going to have X and then add 1.5. So very similar to this one, we already halved X over here. We divided X divided by 2, but now we're going to add 1/2. So this is X divided by 2 plus 1.5. So basically what I'm gonna do is use these numbers because that's already X halved. The X values are the same, 0 through 3. And then I'm just gonna add 1.5 to each of those. Pretty easy. So if we look at the first one, if the X value is 0, I've already halved it, that was 0. If I add 1.5, you just get 1.5. All right, I want you to solve for these next 3 for 1, 2, and 3. So pause the video. All right, you should have gotten 2, 2.5, and 3. So the coordinates are 1, 2, 2, 2.5, 3, 3. And plot that. This is line M. Okay, now we're going to compare and contrast the lines just like we did on the previous page. So I'm noticing that they are parallel. Between the two lines, there's 1, 2, 3 spaces. That remains the same. So they are parallel. Also, if you think about line M, it is 1.5 units higher on the y-axis. So if you're counting up, these are each half, right? I said before spaces, but if we count their actual values, this is half, 1, 1.5. So line M is 1.5 units higher on the y-axis than line L. All right, based on the patterns you see, predict what the line for rule have X, subtract 1 would look like. Draw the line on the plane above. Okay, so the rule is have X, subtract 1. This rule was have X and then add 1.5. So when I added, it made my line higher on the y-axis. If I'm going to be subtracting, still having X, but then subtracting, I know that line will be below line L, and we're subtracting 1. So I'm also gonna predict that it would be 1 unit lower than this. So it's a prediction. It's not the exact line, so it's okay if it's not drawn perfectly, but it would look something like that. Oh, you know what? Actually, I said -1, but remember these are half units, so actually it would be lower than this one. My mistake. These are each half a unit, so if it were 1 unit, it would be farther down. You guys use a ruler. My line is very messy. Okay, circle the points that lie, or that the line, the rule multiply X by 2/3, then subtract 1 would contain. So again, you're going to be looking at the X value, subbing it for X, multiplying by 2/3, subtracting 1. I know that sounds like a lot, but I'm going to write it out here. So X times 2/3, then subtract 1. Okay, so if I were to take this x value, I would be doing 1 1/3 times 2/3 minus 1. All right, so if I take 1 1/3 times 2/3, I need to make this into an improper fraction. So we're going back to, math that we did a couple months ago. 1 1/3 as an improper fraction would be 4/3. So I'm gonna do 4/3 times 2/3 minus 1. I should probably give myself some more space. Okay, so then I get 8/3 minus 1. So 1 is basically 1/1. So I need to make that into a common denominator. The common denominator here would be 3. So this would really be 3/3. So 8/3 minus 3/3. 8 minus 3 is 5/3. And then I have to make this back into a mixed number. So 3 can go into 5 one time with 2 left over. So you would get 1 2/3, which means the y value should be 1 2/3, but it is not. That means this does not follow the rule. Okay, this is going to involve some work. All that I did right here was just for this one, okay? So again, you're gonna take the rule. It's x times 2/3. Then you are going to subtract 1. So I'd like you to work that out for each of these and see if they follow the rule. Whatever this equals, if it equals y, then it follows the rule. If it doesn't equal y, then it doesn't follow the rule. So I'd like you to pause the video and solve for those. All right, 2 1/3 and 3 1, those both fall on the line and they follow the rule. Explain how you know. Well, we used fraction multiplication and then we basically simplified. All right, give 2 other points that fall on this line. So you would basically just pick any x value that you want and then then use this rule right here to solve. So I'm gonna give you an x value of 6 and an x value of 8. I want you to solve for what the y value would be for both of these. So go ahead, pause the video, and solve for the y values. All right, for 6, you should have gotten a y value of 3. For 8, you should have gotten a y value of 4 1/3. All right, your assignment today is pages 63 and 64.